A story for another day, but Steve almost got murdered by a serial killer last night when we stopped for gas.
Absolutely. Just think Jeffrey Dahmer with Buffalo Bill from Silence of the Lambs, and maybe throw in a little bit of Owen Wilson in there. It was actually really creepy. I'm talking some Daisy Dukes, and he had horses with him. He was with some horses. Welcome back to another episode of All Chiefed Up. I'm Steve, and I'm here with Mike. Today, we're going to be doing an in-depth wrap-up on the defensive side of the ball. We already did part one, talking about the offense, so if you want, get back over and watch that video first, or you can do it after this, either way. But first, if you guys love the content on our channel, be sure to hit that like button on all these videos. That helps us out tremendously. Also, if you're watching but you're not subscribed yet, make sure to hit that subscribe button as well. Also, the new thing on here is to hit share. Share this video on your social media. That way your friends and family can see where to go watch good Chiefs content on YouTube, and we appreciate you.
Okay, well, let's jump right into the defense here, man. Let's just look at the defensive line. You want to do it as a whole? We'll do tackles and ends together.
That's the way I like to do it.
Okay, so Chris Jones, Carlos Dunlap, and Danny Shelton did not play in the game, all for various reasons. Some injuries, some we don't know. We kind of expected Shelton to get some snaps, but I really did not see him in the game. If he got in, I missed it. Sorry about that. I misspoke. But other than that, I didn't see him. Stallworth. Stallworth, he flashed pretty good in the first game. I thought he looked solid in this game. I still don't know if he's going to be enough to make the cut because you had Colin Saunders, who looked great again. Colin Saunders is coming on pretty good. Derek Nottie, he's there. Turk Wharton, you know what you get from him. And then, of course, the other defensive tackle was Matt Dickerson. He didn't look as good today as he looked against the Bears, so that's probably kind of declining. When we get to defensive ends, Karlaftis had another big game, I thought. He looked pretty good. He probably could have been a little more efficient, but he's getting there. We're seeing that with Karlaftis. Clark looked good. Dana looked good. Malik Herring, I didn't get to see a lot with Malik Herring. Azur Kamara, he had a half sack there late in the game. Who did you say it was with, Steve? It was
Stallworth.
Stallworth, yeah. I thought Joshua Kando looked a little bit better today than he did week one against the Bears. But again, in the grand scheme of things, I don't know if Kando is securely on this roster or not. Let's just talk about that. Who do you think out of the defensive tackles, defensive end, Steves, that you think looked good, who looked bad, and who do you think might be straddling that cut line?
All right, so I think you got Derek Nottie and Turk Wharton, who are solid. I mean, they were on the team last year. They'll be on the team this year. We got to see what's going on with Danny Shelton. He still hasn't got out there yet, but they signed him for a reason. So I think they're going to use him to close up that run game. We've noticed that this defense is still struggling with the run game, much like last season. Not much different in this preseason game so far. Taylor Stallworth, he's put up a pretty good campaign to make this 53 man. He looked really good in the first week. He looked solid this week. He had the half sack. But the bad part for Taylor Stallworth is that Colin Saunders has flashed big time in both games. He looks like he's improved quite a bit because Colin Saunders, he's been around for a minute and he's always been that quiet guy that never really gets in there and makes a lot of noise. But this preseason, man, he's got out there and made a case for himself.
Yeah, Saunders has had some trouble with injuries. That's basically been his big thing. But if he can stay healthy, this is the year that maybe he could start to break out a little bit, in my opinion.
All right. And as far as defensive end goes, George Karlaftis kind of stole the show again. Still that high motor guy. He had that awesome sack where he was double teamed and held, but still made it happen. Got a hold of Wentz. He looked good. I mean, he looked like he was playing hard the whole game. He made some good plays. Definitely a handful over there for Cosme. Cosme couldn't hardly hold him. So it's a good game for George Karlaftis. Some of the other guys didn't really make a lot of noise. I didn't hear a whole lot out of Frank Clark, Mike Dana, Joshua Kando. He made a couple of good tackles, but didn't do anything spectacular. Super quiet day from Malik Herring, and then Azur Kamara got that half sack with Stallworth. So I mean, overall, kind of a lackluster day for the defensive ends, but Karlaftis definitely was the person that shined.
If there's any cuts there with the defensive ends, like maybe possibly could get cut, for this 80-man roster cut that's actually going to be happening today. So if we get this wrong, don't come at us. We're recording this a little early. I would think Azur Kamara may straddle that line. A lot of people are saying Kando don't look like he may have enough to make this roster. But when I look at this defensive ends, like I don't see nothing better than Kando.
No, there's a lot of people that are super hyped on Malik Herring over the offseason, but don't be surprised if he isn't one that gets cut because he hasn't really got out there and done a whole lot of anything. So, I mean, you're looking at a solid Frank Clark, Mike Dana, George Karlaftis. I think Joshua Kando is that next man up, and of course Dunlap. But I mean that goes without saying. But I think Joshua Kando is that next man up right now.
I agree. If we go to defensive tackles, anybody straddling the cut line after such a good week against the Bears, Matt Dickerson could be right there. Again, I didn't really think he's going to make the team. I just thought he got himself a little bit of attention. So yeah, I would think with them, I think Dickerson, Stallworth, he's kind of that guy that I don't know if he's going to make the team or not. He's another guy that we had mentioned yesterday. We'd mentioned about a possible trade with Rojo for something. You can maybe do that with Stallworth as well, and maybe snag yourself a late round pick or something with Stallworth. He done a lot in Indy, and he had a pretty good season. So there's some good film out there with him that you may be able to move him if you needed to.
Right. And if anybody's on the cut line there on the defensive tackles, it's definitely those two guys, right? Not that they've played bad. They both look pretty decent this preseason, but you also have to consider they are playing third and fourth team players on the other team. So overall, they're still far behind the rest of those guys.
Okay, so jumping in with linebackers, man, we had another big day for Nick Bolton. That dude looks amazing. Right off the bat, he just comes out and just drills somebody on the first play of the game. Nick Bolton looks good, man. He's flying around. I think Willie Gay got the start. Elijah Lee got the start. They both look pretty solid.
They were quiet.
But Leo might be the story. He's not getting in with the first teams, but yet when he's on the field, he is everywhere. We noticed this guy was making tackles. He was flying around. He's everywhere. Leo looks really good.
There were people claiming that Leo started with the ones. I did not see that unless I completely zoned out and he wasn't, he was in there for one play and they took him out. He was not. He came in and around the late third to fourth quarter is when Leo got in there. But when Leo was in the game, he took it over. He was making plays left and right. He popped some guys pretty hard. If anywhere that ball was at, Leo was right behind it. He was in the mix on every play that he was in on defense.
Yeah, a lot of people were down on Jermaine Carter. I thought Jermaine Carter looked better yesterday than he did in the first game. I don't know if that's saying much as in him making the team, but he does play special teams. Darius Harris, I thought, has looked pretty solid for 2 weeks in a row. I think Darius Harris is well on his way to making this roster. Mike Rose, Jack Cochran, the two UDFAs, they're decent, but yeah, they're right there straddling that cut line, in my opinion. Wouldn't you think? I think if anybody gets cut this week, it could be Rose or Cochran out of that whole list.
I would think that Mike Rose would probably go to the practice squad. Cochran maybe, but he's definitely going to get cut. Yeah, I mean, Jermaine Carter, he kind of pulled a Leo. He wasn't as good as Leo, but he was playing hard and he was making sure he was in on every play that he was in the game. Had a few tackles. I mean, getting out there and putting in the effort goes a long way. And I think that really paid off for Jermaine Carter this week. And then, of course, Nick Bolton's going to be Nick Bolton. Willie Gay, as long as he can stay healthy, he should have a good year. Elijah Lee, he's just that solid veteran linebacker to have in there. In my opinion, I'd rather have him there than Hitchens playing the mic. You know what I'm saying? Like, so, I mean, I'll take that as the veteran presence there. But yeah, I mean, linebackers is pretty cut and dry to me.
And let's move on to safety. We had Deon Bush. Decent day today, wouldn't you
Deon
think?
Bush killed a man. He snatched his soul from his body. He humiliated him. I mean, it was a brutal hit, and I mean, you could hear it pop all the way in the upper deck of the stadium. He leveled dude.
Right. I think Bush kind of solidified that number 4 spot there at the safety. I think Key and Zane Anderson, I think those two, when it's all said and done, they're not going to have enough to be on this roster, I don't think. However, we lump in Nasir Greer. I don't know if they're going to use him as safety or DB. He had a big game in week 1 against Chicago, but again, he kind of didn't get to play much, I didn't see. And so he didn't get to follow it up. So it's looking like it's going to be Justin Reed, Thornhill. Cook actually played a little bit with the ones. And then I think Bush is going to play himself in at that number 4 spot. So if any safeties get cut this week, I think you're looking at Greer, Key, and Anderson. Could be one of those 3.
Absolutely. I mean, Anderson did make one good special teams play, I believe, which is what he did when he was on the team for a minute last year. But Key, he seems to be out of position a lot. It happened to him again this game. He's just not having a great year. So I definitely expect to see him go back to the practice squad. Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I think Bush takes that fourth spot, and we can just move right on to cornerbacks. Rashad Fenton, like we mentioned, he went out of the game with a groin injury, so he didn't get much action. L'Jarius Sneed looked excellent. He had some great coverage plays, one deep pass downfield. He stuck with it the whole way. We thought he was going to lose it there for a second, but he finally got his head turned around at the last second and broke up that pass. So good on him. McDuffie just looks solid, man. Like McDuffie's not getting enough credit at this point. Like everybody wants to talk about George Karlaftis and this and that, but McDuffie is just quietly out there doing his thing, and I think he could potentially be a number one cornerback for us. It could kind of go back and forth between him and L'Jarius Sneed because we're not the type of team that swaps the cornerbacks around with the number one receiver. It just stays, so that's going to be varied. So he's going to have just as big of a role as L'Jarius Sneed when it comes down to it. Jalen Watson had a great day. He looked much better than he did last week. Good in pass coverage. He also had a really good tackle where he couldn't make the tackle, so just flung his whole body out and stopped the play. It was pretty impressive. So yeah, and then Chris Lamont, he was definitely the highlight. Like he got out there and made some things happen. Made some tackles, looked really good, even on special teams, and then he got that interception at the end of the game and almost took it back for 6.
Josh Williams, I thought he'd done a pretty good job as well. Josh Williams, he's having to come into a league to where everybody he's playing is just really good. His competition level's always been the knock. And so I think he's holding his own. He's not doing exactly what we need him to do 100% every time, but he is getting there. And that's all you can ask. And Josh Williams looks pretty good. As you
Josh
said,
Williams is living off of his athletic ability right now. The fact that he's tall, long, and he can run fast and he's quick. I mean, he's not necessarily looking great right now, but he's being able to hang with these guys just off of athletic ability. But like you said, he's got a higher level of competition right now. I think he's trying to adjust. He didn't look great, but he didn't look bad, and he's definitely going to be in that mix right there, about the number 4.
right, he's definitely holding his own. As you said, McDuffie, he looks solid. I think the first play of the day, he drew Scary Terry and he held his own against him. Fenton with the injury, obviously, but Fenton's going to have a spot on this team. Watson, I thought he played himself maybe a little better than he did, to climb the depth chart just a little bit. He still missed a tackle that, he got shook pretty bad in the hole. Other than that, I didn't see much out of Dandridge. I didn't get to see Najee Johnson get to play a little bit. He might be straddling that cut line. And then DiCaprio Boodle, man. Can we talk about him for a second?
I don't
I
want to.
This is the
I
thing with
don't.
DiCaprio Boodle.
Why are we still talking about DiCaprio Boodle?
No, for some reason, all these people on Twitter, who was it yesterday that's trying to make excuses for DiCaprio Boodle? Who was it? Was it
Pete
Ron
Sweeney.
Cobb? Pete Sweeney. He's out there and he's like, oh, well, in his defense, it was a great throw. We don't need his defense. Like DiCaprio Boodle, every time he was on the field, he was getting beat and they were just picking on him.
They did. They picked on him. He was consistently beat every play, and they knew it. They went right at him over and over and over again. At one point, you even made the joke like, is Boodle trying to get the most tackles on the team by just allowing every catch and then tackling? Like,
Right.
this guy was consistently bad. He was consistently bad last week. But what really frustrated me about it is the fact that they kept him in this entire game. He played almost the whole game. It's like, why wouldn't you put Najee Johnson out there or somebody like that we want to see some more? See if they have
Yeah.
you anything to offer. But no, we want to leave Boodle in there to get picked on. It made no sense. I'm over Boodle. I'm ready for him to go ahead and get cut. Whatever you got to do there, go ahead and do that. But yeah, we didn't see anything from Najee Johnson. I think there was one other guy I didn't get out there much. Who was that?
Dandridge.
Dandridge. I didn't see anything from him. If he was out there, he didn't make any noise. Right now, I mean, those guys are the cut line for me. I'm thinking that Najee Johnson's going to go to practice squad. I think that Dandridge is going to get cut, and I think that Boodle needs to be cut. And then Jalen Watson, he's kind of riding that line where he's playing good enough to where he might make the 53 man. It just depends on how many they keep, or he'll go to the practice squad.
Yeah. So with Jalen Watson, I give him about a 60-40 up from the 50-50 to make the team. I think it's helping him too that Fenton is looking like he's going to be an injury machine this year. Like, you can't really start cutting these guys. So this may actually keep Boodle on the roster this week, whether we want him or not.
Man.
I don't get it. But yeah, I think if anybody's in that cut line this week to be one of those 5 cut, it should be Boodle. Who knows?
Hey,
Dandridge, Najee Johnson's probably the two.
I just want to say something real quick. Can you
What?
believe that they cut Lonnie Johnson and DeAndre Baker before DiCaprio Boodle?
No, I don't know what they see in him. I'm being dead honest. I don't know what they see with DiCaprio Boodle. Everybody we were sitting with in the game was just kind of like Boodle. Like we don't get it. Like nobody got it. We didn't understand why he was still there. Maybe they were just giving him his opportunity to see what he could do, and firmly, I believe he failed. So maybe that was what they were doing, just giving him that last all out. Let's take a look at DiCaprio Boodle.
Right. Well, hopefully we won't see a whole lot of that in the
But
third
dude,
game.
At this point, I'd trade DiCaprio Boodle for a half-drank Sunkist and some chewed bubblegum.
Boo.
I just like to boo him.
All right, so enough Boodle bashing for now. Let's move into winners and losers on the defensive side of the ball from this Commanders game. I'm just going to start it off with winner. On my side, George Karlaftis, once again looking dominant on that end there. Colin Saunders looked good as well. He looked consistently good last week and this week, so he's making his campaign at making this 53-man roster like he always does. Chris Lamont had to be a winner. He looked good in coverage. He looked good in special teams, got that interception. And then I would go ahead and say that the linebackers, most of them were winners, like Jermaine Carter stepping up today and having a better day than he did last week. Leo Chanel, Nick Bolton for being everywhere, all over the field, just making plays and looking dominant out there.
Let's start with defensive tackle. I'll say the big winner there was Colin Saunders. I agree with you. Defensive end, George Karlaftis. I agree with you again. With linebackers, I thought Bolton looked really good today. I thought Leo had another decent day. I thought Darius Harris made a lot of good plays. He has to be a winner there. When it gets to safeties, I thought Deon Bush made a good play. He's probably on the winner list for today. Juan Thornhill as well looked good in his playing time he got early. And then with corners, Snead looked pretty good. McDuffie looked solid. And Jalen Watson, I'll go ahead and give him a winner on the day. He did miss that tackle, but he looked a lot better than he did against Chicago. And so I think he's on the right trajectory. He's going up.
So who was your losers for the day on defense?
Big losers. I don't really know if there's any big losers other than Boodle.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah,
there were no big losers on defense today except for Boodle. He's the only one that looked consistently terrible out there, and they kept him in for such a long stretch that everyone saw it over and over again. So it's the one that just sticks out like a sore thumb. So there were some guys that I do want to see some more from on the defense. I'm going to go ahead and start it with Frank Clark and Mike Dana. Like they were okay, but I want to see more out of them. Like Frank Clark, man, you're supposed to have this big year this year. Make your comeback because last year wasn't so great. So get out there, make some noise. Mike Dana, you're kind of in that situation to where if you want a lot of playing time significant, you need to get out there and make some things happen. And then, of course, Kando and Herring. What about those two? Kando kind of made a couple good plays, but Herring's been completely quiet. It's basically just some of these defensive ends outside of George Karlaftis need to make some noise and get some pressure on the quarterbacks.
Yeah, I would agree with all that. I think when you get to the DBs, I'm going to look at Najee Johnson. And actually, he just didn't get a lot of playing time, but there's got to be a reason there why. We need to see more from him, probably even practice. You just got to see more. I'm going to put Josh Williams in the I want to see more. He does look solid, but I just want to see, it's going to take a while. Let's not get that twisted. Corner is a hard position to translate. I don't care if you come from Georgia, it's a hard position. And this guy's coming from D2. We're not dogging on these guys at all. I just want to see him a little bit more. I want to see him progress. It don't have to be at a crazy rate. I just want to see more progression. Not saying he's not looked good. He's looked okay. Brian Cook on a few plays. I wanted to see more from him. The play with Snead that you were talking about, where Snead looked like he was going to get beat. He turns around the exact time and he tips it. Brian Cook was the back guy there, and he was late getting there. So if Snead doesn't tip it, the guy's making the catch, all because Cook's 2 steps too slow. So I want to see Cook step up and do a little better when he's getting the opportunity. I've also not seen a big hit out of Brian Cook yet. Like, isn't that what he's known for? Where's he at? Like, come stuff and run play.
He had one decent hit on special teams the first game, but yeah, you're right. But a lot of these young guys, you should expect for us to say we want to see more out of them because they're still adjusting. They're just getting in the mix. So on the last episode, we talked about how Kennard's not in there yet. Obviously, something's going on there. And then, like, On the defensive side of the ball, you're looking at Chanel. Like, why is he not getting in with the first, second team very much? Like, it's just it's a transition thing. I think that the coaches are taking it easy and letting them do their thing and get adjusted. So nothing to freak out about yet, guys. Overall, I think it was a win for the team. Obviously 24-14, but it was a win in the fact that the players actually did progress. Some of them were consistent, like Justin Watson, George Karlaftis. Some of them that showed out in the first week were consistently good this week. And I feel like that we had more guys who stepped it up this week than just absolutely stepped it down. I don't know if we had anybody that regressed because Boodle was bad last week as well. So
No. So to wrap this up, we did offense yesterday. We did defense today. They got to make 5 cuts by Tuesday. So by the time people are watching this, they probably already know the cuts. Do you want to try to guess the 5 cuts that they make? This is tough. I'm going to say Boodle is a cut.
they won't do it. They won't do it. If they're
Okay.
gonna let a guy play for a whole game,
But this is who we want, that we think they should cut.
yeah, I think they should cut
So
him. But
we're going to see if they cut Boodle or not. We'll know by the time this airs. But I will say Boodle should be on that cut list.
Yep.
Okay. Do you have another one?
Steinmetz.
I think another definite cut's probably going to be Aaron Parker, the wide receiver. We don't even see him get in the game much. It would not be a big surprise.
I think it's going to be the tight ends. Bushman might be a cut. What's the other guy's name? Franks. He might be a cut. And then I don't know if he's still on the team, but the guy from Africa that was a tight end, but we were going to use him as defensive end. I think he's going to be a cut. We haven't even seen him.
Okay. So that's going to be your 5. You think they're going to cut both tight ends this week or just one of those guys?
At least one. I can't really think of anybody else off the top of my head that's just an obvious cut at the moment, to be honest.
We could have a shocker. They shocked us with Lonnie Johnson, man. If there's a shock cut this week, who do you think it may be?
All right, shock cut for this week. I'm going to go with Malik Herring. I know a lot of people loved him in the offseason and they really hyped him up, but he hasn't really done anything and they don't seem to be too, inclined to get him in there and get him going. So he could be a shock cut. And then on the offensive side of the ball, maybe a Corey Coleman or a Josh Gordon could be that cut. Cornell Powell even. One of those guys could definitely get cut, and that would shock some people.
I think the biggest shock cut that there could possibly be would probably be Rojo.
Yeah, for sure. But I don't see it coming yet. But
I don't either.
Don't be super surprised if it happens.
I wouldn't either. But yeah, man, that's going to wrap it up. Again, you guys are probably going to see these cuts before this airs, so don't be too hard on us if we missed them.
All right, guys, that's going to put a bow on this preseason game against the Commanders. So we're going to be looking forward to the Packers for the rest of this week. But before we go, if you would trade DiCaprio Boodle for a 4-piece Nug Happy Meal from McDonald's, hit that like button right now. We'll even throw in some honey mustard, some sweet and sour sauce, maybe some hot mustard, whatever you want. But hit that like button right now. If you're not a subscriber yet, make sure to hit that subscribe button. We're trying to get to 5K before the season ends. Hit the share button. Share us on social media. That way your friends, family, and other Chiefs fans know where to find good Chiefs content on YouTube. And it was a good one this week, man. Had a good trip to KC. It was a success. So, Mike, you got anything left?
I do. A story for another day, but Steve almost got murdered by a serial killer last night when we stopped for gas.
Absolutely. Just think Jeffrey Dahmer with Buffalo Bill from Silence of the Lambs, and maybe throw in a little bit of Owen Wilson in there. It was actually really creepy. I'm talking some Daisy Dukes, and he had horses with him. He was with the horses. It creeped me completely out. We'll talk about it some more later on. We appreciate you guys joining us today. We will see you next time.
Bye.
There goes a sight from my soul.